Lee Jae-myung has already begun work as South Korea's president just hours after being elected. The 6 months of instability following Yoon Suk Yeol's failed declaration of martial law ensured Lee would not get to enjoy the usual transition period and ratcheted up pressure to tackle mounting crises facing the country. Kwon Jang-ho is host of the Korean Politics Debrief podcast, and he joins me now from Seoul. Good to have you with us this evening. And firstly, what do you make of the overall result of the election with Lee Jae-myung winning around 49% of the vote? Is this considered a good result from the new president's point of view?
Well, so on one hand, this was a wholly unexciting result. All the polls, ever since former President Yoon was impeached in April following that disastrous attempt to impose martial law, all the polls had Lee in the lead by a margin of around 10 points or more. So this win was no surprise at all. But on the other hand, it was quite dramatic because it was the public's final and decisive condemnation of former President Yoon and what he attempted to do. This election was first and foremost about sending a message against a martial law, voting against the party responsible and drawing a line under it once and for all. And in fact, Lee Jae-myung campaigned on that. He urged Koreans to end insurrection by voting for him. But yes, a 49%, considering that might actually not seem like a lot because that's only 8 points ahead of his opponent. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is because Korea is at the moment a deeply divided nation politically. The two sides of the political aisle really don't trust each other. So even though there was this debacle with former President Yoon, most conservatives in Korea are still not willing to trust the other side, particularly Lee Jae-myung, who they have a lot of issues with, and not just his policies, but his moral character as well. And then the other point is because of these issues that he has, he is someone with a lot of issues, a lot of controversies, from legal issues to issues around his character. And this has hampered him from having, I think, a bigger election win that people might have expected. So, yes, it was a big win, 49%, the second highest ever win in Korea's modern democracy, but perhaps not as big as some people might have expected.
Yes, do you think, you talk about his background a little bit. He's got all those cases that are pending. He's got immunity at the moment, but he's got a rags to riches history about him. Would that help him through in terms of being able to reach out, get his message out to the public?
Well, yes, so he's got a very interesting story, a very interesting character, but also very divisive. As you said, very humble beginnings, born in the 60s to a poor household, essentially worked in sweatshops from the age of 13, where he also injured his left hand, resulting in a permanent disability. But despite that, he managed to become a human rights lawyer. He entered politics in the mid-2000s and rose up the ranks of the Democratic Party, becoming a mayor and then a provincial governor as well. So he made a name for himself as well, implementing a lot of interesting progressive policies. But as I said, he's faced a lot of controversies, multiple allegations of corruption from his time as mayor and governor. There's even some accusations of involvement in illegal financial transactions with North Korea. These trials are all still currently ongoing. Whether people have turned around, this election wasn't really about him. It was more about the fact that they wanted to send a message about martial law. So they still have a lot of misgivings about him, which is why I think there won't be much of a honeymoon period at the moment. I think he's going to need to hit the ground running to try and prove his doubters wrong.
And if he is now hitting the ground running, what are going to be some of his immediate policy priorities, given the fact that his party has got a massive majority in the parliament?
Yeah, he wields a lot of power. So he's got the public mandate, that major majority in the National Assembly, as you said. He has a very strong grip on the party itself as well, which is important. And the opposition are weak and ineffective. So he could make really sweeping reforms and changes if he so wishes. With that in mind, what's going to tackle first? Well, he's talked about overcoming the political divide in the nation. But actually, it's the economy that's the most urgent. And he said that himself. Korea faces huge existential issues when it comes to the economy. Chronic low birth rate, aging population, elderly poverty, disillusioned youth struggling to find jobs and housing, huge household debts. And then there's the US tariff concerns as well, especially important for Korea, which is an export-driven economy. And that is possibly something that he's going to try and tackle first, the issues with the US, because that is urgent. And the economy at the moment for Korea, it's really struggling. This year alone, the Bank of Korea has cut the growth forecast for the nation from 1.9 to 0.8%. So, yeah, there's going to be a lot he needs to do to try and improve the economy. And if he can do that, that will help him win over doubters as well.
Yeah, it does sound like a very, very challenging tenure for him. And on that front as well, just looking across the border, do you see any major changes in how he deals with North Korea and Kim Jong-un?
Yeah, this is something that I'm sure a lot of your watchers will be interested in. He is a departure from his predecessor, Yoon, who was very hardline against North Korea. And he said he's more open to dialogue and he believes better relations with North Korea is important for the security of South Korea. However, he's not an ideologue like former President Moon Jae-in was, who really tried to make improving relations with North Korea an essential part of his legacy. I think with Lee Jae-myung, although he will perhaps be more open for talks, I don't think he'll push for anything too much, especially if the North aren't interested. For example, I don't think he'll push for sanctions on North Korea to be lifted, like we saw with the Moon administration. He'll want to ratchet down tensions, though, perhaps by doing things like scaling down military exercises with the US, or at least using less aggressive language. But this, I think, for him was going to be less of a priority.
Okay, Kwon Jang-ho in Seoul, really appreciate your analysis. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.